What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at Tonalaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of Tonalaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. If you're an attorney and you're looking for a trusted partner in New York personal injury referrals, Tonalaw has been doing this since 2001. We're the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation, referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONALAW or visit us at tonalaw.com. If you're calling because you heard us on the podcast, just mention Lead Counsel when you make the referral, and they will get you on the phone with me. All right. I am now doing another solo episode post mastermind that I was down at the Florida mastermind. It's a closed mastermind. It was a break-off group from a prior mastermind that we were in. And there's 9 members. 1 facilitator is the typical structure. And man, was it chock full of fantastic information. The funny part of it is I had attended a John Fisher mastermind several months back, and the big topic at both masterminds was the role of operations in law firm. So this episode it's basically taking a peek behind the curtain and really diving into the role of operations in a law firm and the importance of operations in a law firm. And there's so much misunderstanding around this topic because they don't ever teach you this stuff in law school. And there's still widespread misunderstanding about even what operations is. This is for people coming up, unclear on operations, or just trying to get some more clarity, because in the recent past few months, I went out to lunch with a very, very high-level expert COO executive at a few Fortune 100 publicly held companies throughout his career, recently retired. Got a super education over a 2-hour lunch with the gentleman, and he was awesome. And then at this mastermind was another Fortune 25 career COO. And when you're sitting in the room with these people, it is just unbelievable to listen to them speak, because they really can enlighten you on so many different things. So operations are the things that let the lawyers and the paralegals do their jobs well. And it's often the unsung hero of the group. So we're going to define what operations really means, meet the roles involved, and look at how ops drive value and explore the challenges and the future of the field. So first, what is law firm operations? This is operations in the context of a law firm, because that's what I know. And this is what I've been studying and deep diving on as of late, because it's a significant contributor to the wild success of many, many law firms. And there's a lot of key components that go into that, but this is one of them, right? So the key areas of operations are HR, finance, IT, client intake, compliance, workflow management, systemization. And a real world example of this is, how do you streamline billing in such a way that you reduce collection time by 30%? Right? Or in a PI firm like mine, how do you reduce time on desk, right? Because we don't have billable hours, but what we do have is time on desk. And the faster you move files, the faster you get paid, and the higher profitability of those files. So there are many, many people that go into making a law firm work before it gets to what the lawyers and the paralegals do. So let's take a deep dive real quick on key players in law firm operations as I understand them, right? So there's a hierarchy of different operators in any business, right? Which they didn't teach us this in law school. You hear the word operations and then there's wild mislabeling in the space. And so at the highest level, you have a C-suite executive called the Chief Operating Officer. And the Chief Operating Officer oversees all non-legal functions and strategic execution. Chief Operating Officer oversees all non-legal functions and strategic execution in the law firm. A non-lawyer will never be able to advise on legal strategy or legal advice within a law firm. And in bigger firms, you'll see a chief legal officer and a chief operations officer, right? And the director of legal operations focuses on legal tech, vendor management, data analytics, and workflow optimization. Right. Again, this is typically going to be a non-lawyer. All of these roles are actually typically you're going to see non-lawyers in them. A chief litigation officer or a chief legal officer, that's different. That person's going to head up all the lawyers, the legal strategy, probably still doing larger trials. You have COO, director of legal ops, and then you have an operations manager, right? That person manages the daily workflow, tech systems, and staff coordination. Then you have practice group managers. And a practice group manager, like in my firm, we have two verticals. We have personal injury, we have no-fault collections. We have two different practice group managers, right? They support the specific legal teams. They do budgeting, performance tracking, and resource allocation for that team. And then you can, in bigger firms, also have an office manager that will handle facilities, admin, local HR or IT in a smaller office. And again, this is the stuff that they don't tell you. There are levels to all of this stuff. Same way there's levels to trial lawyers, the same way there's levels to financial people. There are levels to this stuff.
This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, Tonalaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONA-LAW or visit us at tonalaw.com.
Now that you know who does the work, how does good operations look in a law firm? How does good operations make a difference? So I can tell you that the benefits are broad reaching. And even though the non-attorney and non-paralegal, non-legal roles are not considered quote unquote profit centers, that your return on investment on these positions should be the equivalent of what it would be for a profit center based upon a smoother billing, better client experience, improved morale, more efficient use of the tools that you have, the technology that you have. Better technology should be a result of a good operator, better time tracking, better utilization rates, and now AI and incorporating AI throughout every phase of the practice, right? So if you're a PI practice, you're going to be looking at how are you using it from marketing and intake all the way through the client experience. And so one of the things you have to look at is operations and how it helps firms grow or adapt during a crisis, because the operators are the ones that help you prepare. You know, running a tight ship isn't easy. So you have to look at what hurdles does an operations person or team face within a law firm. The first is there's typically a barrier where you may have lawyer or non-lawyer resistance to an operator, right? And I've witnessed that in the past, especially in the field of personal injury. Lawyers can be very independent, and they should be. You want them to be free thinkers and independent and self-starters, but an operator is there to make everything run smoothly and to establish systems. So while you can have independent and free-thinking lawyers, they have to operate within the confines of systems. Otherwise, it's not a scalable business, right? The other barriers that they have is proving ROI. You know, a COO is a high-ticket hire. So you have to set out key performance metrics that you're going to want to see that show an ROI. And with the right COO, your profitability and your top line growth should be significant, should be measurable through both increase in revenue, top line and bottom line, and in expense savings and expense cutting. And then there may be budget constraints that come into play, right? That can be a problem for an operator. No business has unlimited budget. there's a constant change right now going on with AI, automation, and data-driven decision-making. So expectations are evolving, which also is a challenge for operations, right? But I do think that the next wave, this is what I'm seeing, is that you're going to see more leaders becoming tech savvy. I know that in the rooms that I'm in, we're all talking about the same type of technology right now. Case management systems, incorporating AI and different types of communication systems that we can implement, right? And then there's also client-focused processes, right? Creating and weaving into the fabric of your law firm client first in every turn, because clients don't care if you're a great attorney. That's the table stakes for getting to the table. To use a gambling analogy, if you're ponying up to the table for poker, you have to come with a certain amount of money to play. The table stakes in growing a law firm are being a great attorney. Clients expect you to be great. And so what becomes next is how can you weave into the fabric of your law firm a client experience that turns them into raving fans? And so I do think that is the actual epitome of the next wave. And so to me, that along with continued hybrid work or different type of work structures that are there, those are all challenges that I think that the operators are going to have to adapt the same way the law firm owners have to adapt, then every business has to adapt, right? Then the next thing is, where does the future go from here? So I had reached out to a very close friend who's a recruiter in the space to just kind of say, hey, in light of what I'm hearing about with operations, tell me what you know about it, right? And she was able to boil it down pretty easily to, you have basically three levels: the expert, which is that COO level. Then you have the next level down, which would be considered like the conductor, right? And what she was saying is, look, that's a strong operational leader. They show potential for COO. They're up and coming, but they are not at the expert level yet. They're great to running the day-to-day and implementing the founder's vision. And they do have strategic planning, and that seems to be the differentiator. Pure COO is strategic. The mid-level is strategic and task-driven. And then the third level, which would be the ops manager role, I believe, would be a hands-on operator, smaller team, fast-moving, and juggles multiple responsibilities, but they keep the day-to-day operations running smoothly. But there's a level always of reactivity versus proactivity because there may not be the budget for the bigger team, that type of stuff. So that's just a quick down and dirty rundown, but I've been hearing so much about operations. It seems to be the major focus in the rooms that I'm in, that to me, it's about right now understanding where you're at in your journey, right? Sub 3 million, you're probably not going to have a COO. You're probably not going to have a need for it. Sub 3-4 million, but you'll look at the other two roles. At the point that you're probably north of 1 million, you probably are looking at one of the other two roles. And if you don't have it, you can probably feel your stress as the owner of a law firm. So the takeaways are this: you have to understand this component of owning a business, of owning your law firm. And you have to do the research, do the work. You have to learn this stuff. And there's not many people that are going to teach it to you. It's kind of self-taught. Operations are essential for strategic scaling of a law firm. And it's rapidly evolving. And you won't be able to grow without paying attention to operations. And the takeaway from it for me is, know your team, invest in your team, invest in your systems. And it's not just about the lawyering or the support staff. Operations plays a key role. So that's really what it comes down to. That's it for this week. Hopefully it was helpful, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, Tonalaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONA-LAW or visit us at tonalaw.com.